Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Inenco Energy News. The underlying support for nuclear power from the Conservative Party has been emphasised this week by Energy Minister Charles Hendry. The coalition deal sees the Liberal Democrats being allowed to speak out against nuclear expansion whilst committing to abstain from voting on any proposals. The Conservatives' position, however, is that the total cost of building the new capacity should be borne commercially. This includes the cost of decommissioning. This will add significantly to the overall cost of the projects. The cost of decommissioning existing plants is expected to be over £50 billion. Generators like EDF have said that there needs to be a large increase in the floor price for carbon emissions in order for new nuclear build to become viable. Whilst the new government is committed to these changes, there are currently no clear signs of progress on this issue. The issue of the oil spill in the Mexican Gulf dominated the first speech that President Obama gave from the Oval Office. The speech demonstrated the hardening attitudes of the US administration and its dealings with BP, on the day that a government panel revealed that as many as 60,000 barrels of oil may be spilling each day rather than the 5,000 in earlier estimates. With talks ongoing between BP managers and the White House, the estimated costs of the containment and cleanup have continued to rise. The containment operation of the Discoverer Enterprise is continuing with the latest figures suggesting that up to 15,000 barrels a day may be being collected from the leak. Other governments, including the UK, are now urgently reviewing the safety measures being applied to deep water drilling operations. These platforms have only become viable as the price of oil has risen and the production from more accessible sources had neared its peak. In the last few days, there has been an increasing level of focus on building longer-term approaches to a low-carbon future. A grant of over £7 million has been made to support the development of the UK's first biorefinery in the northeast of England. And new reports from the Centre of Alternative Technology and the Energy Saving Trust look at how real carbon reductions can be delivered. To discuss the wider issues, we're joined today by market analyst Ian Parrett.
Hello, Mel.
Hi, Ian. The Energy Saving Trust report focuses on water. How is this linked to energy?
Well, it may seem at first sight that they're two different things, but particularly if you look domestically, then a large amount of energy is used to heat water that we're going to use to pump it for showers and so forth. So actually, if you do address the issues of water usage, then you can make a significant impact on energy usage as well. At the same time, if we look towards the longer term future, then water is going to become a scarce resource as well. So it actually makes a lot of sense to try and address both issues at the same time.
Zero Carbon Britain 2030 is obviously far more reaching. What sort of future are they predicting?
Yes, it's a very different future from the one that we have at the moment, and very different from the way that perhaps you would envisage it being if we just carried on as we do at the moment. So what they're primarily suggesting is it's a downshifting of the economy. So activity slows down and we start to do things on a smaller basis. There's going to be a lot more walking, there's going to be a lot more bicycle riding. So the way that we use transport changes, the way that we bring food from across the world changes. So quite a massive change in the way that we're supposed to behave. It's also, it's a ratcheting up of the requirements for carbon reduction. So if we look back, we started off with a 60% reduction by 2050, that moved to an 80% reduction, and now they're starting to talk about basically a 90 to 100% reduction by 2030. And there's pressure from environmental groups that's growing, particularly as we've seen carbon emissions come down and because of the slowdown in the economy. So lots of people are trying to jump on board and saying, well, we can go even further, we can go even further. But it's a life that I'm not sure that a lot of people are ready to accept yet. And there may need to be quite some significant incentives given for people to change that behaviour.
So the new biorefinery, does this represent a big step forward towards this new model?
Well, it's certainly a step forward. It's designed to take something like 100,000 tonnes of biodegradable waste and then process that to produce a bioethanol, which can be used in transport, and also to produce a relatively small amount of electricity as well. And there's quite a lot of big claims being made for what it's going to do. And they say that 250,000 cars worth of biofuels are going to be produced, which sounds at first like a lot. But actually, when you look more deeply into it, that's on the basis of what's called the E10 standard of fuel, and that's 10% of biofuels along with 90% of petrol. So it's actually quite a lot smaller than you'd first envisage. And what we really need to do is to understand how these sorts of plants can be scaled up and how big a difference they're really going to make to the energy economy.
That's great. Well, thanks very much, Ian.
Thank you.
That's actually all we have time for this week. Thanks again to Ian. Thanks and goodbye.